You ever been stuck on a problem at work that just feels impossible? You've had all the meetings, you've sent the emails, but nothing really changes. It's like this low-grade hum of frustration you just can't turn off. Well, today we're going to dive into a story about a company that was facing that exact kind of quiet crisis and how they found a breakthrough in the last place they ever thought to look. It sounds a little too good to be true, doesn't it? I mean, a single conversation, not some year-long project or a massive company reorganization. But this story, it really shows how asking the right questions and actually listening to the answers can change absolutely everything. Let's see how it all went down. All right, so our story starts at St. Luke's Hospital. Picture this, a consulting team is sitting down for a big planning session with the marketing department, the head of HR, and the CEO. The official plan was to talk about marketing, but the CEO, a guy named Joseph, he pretty quickly lets on that there's a much, much deeper issue going on. And here it is. This is where the real problem starts to bubble up. The CEO, Joseph, is just brutally honest. I mean, how many of us have seen those corporate values posters hanging in the hallway? He basically admits that he feels this huge disconnect between the posters and reality. He'd even walk the hospital halls at night, just anonymously, and that positive, caring culture they were advertising, it just wasn't what he was seeing. Now, what's so important to get here is that this wasn't some obvious five-alarm fire. The staff were perfectly professional, it wasn't a case of mass burnout, and HR kept saying the employee surveys were coming back fine. The real problem was quieter, way more subtle. People felt stuck. They felt underused, and they were deeply frustrated by it all. So, this is the point where the whole conversation could have just stalled out. But instead of just pivoting to a new marketing campaign, the consultants pushed. They dug a little deeper, asking about the risk of advertising, a culture that didn't quite match up with what was really happening. And that's when things got really interesting. The consultant used this absolutely brilliant analogy. You know that video, right? The one with the super smiley employees talking about how much they just love their company. Meanwhile, the actual flight attendants on your plane look like they would rather be literally anywhere else. It's the perfect picture of inauthentic messaging. And bam, that analogy hit home. Hard. A member of the hospital's own marketing team had this immediate gut reaction. She said it felt gross, like she was being lied to. And that's exactly it. It's the kind of thing that makes both customers and employees cynical. That was the exact risk St. Luke's was running. So the team had totally nailed down the real problem. This culture of frustration that was being hidden by fine surveys and feel-good posters. But the solution? Well, it didn't come from the CEO or the fancy consultants. It came from the quietest person in the entire room. Just as the team was kind of grappling with this massive issue, a junior team member named Max, who hadn't said a single word the entire meeting, spoke up. And what he said completely derailed the agenda in the best possible way. It was that simple. He just said, "You guys should go through our Working Genius program." Max explained that this tool his firm developed, which helps people understand what kind of work gives them energy versus what drains them, had totally changed their own office. He was living proof. He even said, "Heck, I wouldn't be here at this meeting if we hadn't done it." All of a sudden, the solution wasn't some top-down command, it was a recommendation from a peer who had lived it. The clients were completely hooked. You could see the head of HR literally sitting up straighter in his chair. The CEO was a little skeptical, but he was definitely intrigued. So they just put the entire marketing discussion on hold, and for the next 25 minutes, the consulting team basically launched into a brand new presentation, explaining this whole Working Genius model right there on the spot. So at its core, the model is a framework to figure out your geniuses, the kind of thinking and work you're naturally good at and actually get joy from. But, and this is key, it also identifies your frustrations, the work that just drains you, even if you're perfectly capable of doing it. This is the big insight. That feeling of being poorly utilized so often comes from spending way too much time working in your areas of frustration. It's not about competence, it's all about energy. The whole model is built on this pretty simple idea that all work happens in 3 stages. First, you've got ideation. That's the thinking, the wondering, the inventing. Then comes activation. That's rallying people and organizing the plan. And finally, you have implementation, actually executing and finishing the job. The game-changing idea here is that each of us has natural geniuses that fall into 1 or 2 of these stages, and we feel most alive when we get to contribute in those areas. When a team gets stuck, it's usually because one of these stages is being completely ignored. Now, you might be thinking this is just another corporate personality test, right? But the effect in that conference room was electric. It was immediate. This was not a let's circle back on this in Q3 kind of moment. The change started happening right then and there. This is just incredible. Within 1 hour, just 60 minutes of hearing the model explained, the head of marketing was already figuring out how to reorganize her entire team. They suddenly realized they had people stuck in roles that were their frustration, and it was slowing everything down. The solution just became crystal clear. And look at this. They immediately started speaking the language. The head of marketing, Mary, she's using the model's specific terms to clarify her own thoughts and ask for exactly the right kind of help she needs. This created a shared vocabulary for them to collaborate, literally minutes after they first learned about it. And this wasn't just a light bulb moment for the marketing team. The CEO, Joseph, he had his own huge epiphany. He realized his own leadership team was dysfunctional because they were constantly skipping that first stage of work, ideation, and jumping straight into doing things. It's no wonder the mission felt lost. They weren't taking any time to actually ponder and question their own direction. This entire transformation, from identifying a deep, hidden cultural problem to a team literally reorganizing itself on the spot, it all happened because one group was willing to ditch their agenda and have a deep, honest conversation. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What unspoken frustrations are hiding in plain sight on your team, just waiting for the right conversation to bring them into the light?